Okay, you're good.
Okay. Good evening there. We recall last week we had antiqued, dyed this on the edge with cordovan and went down the center with British tan. And then we antiqued the whole thing on this 2¼ inch basket weave guitar strap. So there's where we left off. So we're going to pick up this week where we're going to clean the surface of this where the tooling was. I've taken Fiebing's Carnauba and put on the rag here. So the rag, of course, is going to be nice and flat to clean what's on the surface. And that's what we want to just clean what's on the surface, not down in the work, because then we're going to pull it out of the tooling and then we lose the effect of antiquing. Got to get a little bit down here, as you can see there. Flip this over. Get this right down here. So, of course, with Carnauba, you're putting the natural oils back into the leather that you took away from the leather when you use the alcohol-based dye. Okay. So on the plain areas, you're going to want to use sheepskin with veg tan back. As we've talked in the past, it keeps the fur very firm, the wool very firm and more stiff. So it will do scrubbing for you. And it doesn't take a whole lot, of course. We're just going to wipe it on there gently. And then you apply pressure in a circular motion and just kind of scrub it. Put your shoulder in there and scrub it. We're going to get all that excess. That was cordovan, of course, which went down the edges. And of course, on the ends, it's dyed that way too. So there's the excess. There wasn't a whole lot. So still you want to get everything off there as you can. So we'll get this in right here. Okay, so there again, get that scrubbed and clean there. Okay, so once we get this all clean like this and we have oils in it, you're not going to be able to see it. Well, let me see. Maybe I can do it from this angle here. Can you move those two belts for me, Garth, please? You want to gently, just like I showed in the video of the wallet where I pulled it over that edge just gently. Same thing here. You just want to pull that over gently so it kind of helps the leather fold and not create any issues as far as wanting to crack on us. So there again, now we let it dry a little bit. We'll turn the fan on here. Okay, so we got the fan running, so that will help circulate the air and the airflow come down onto that thin layer of Carnauba. And so as that dries, we'll set that up here. And on our two sites that we posted, the belt, the blue belt with the diamond, which happened to be my son's belt from almost a year ago. Anyways, had a lot of feedback. A lot of people love that. So I'm going to demonstrate how to dye that. But I have another piece I've done here as well. Just, it's a little narrow. Diamonds a little closer together in the center. But I want to be able to show a couple different colors, not just the blue, so you can see it and get the look in two different colors, not just one. So what we'll do is we'll take some cordovan, shake it up here. there again, as you've seen before, as I shared, get that rag right up tight to the lid, apply a lot of pressure, tip it down, give it a tiny bit of air, and you'll see it's going to load the rag right up for you. That way you're in control of it. So now we'll go back over, try to cover everything, because newer people could be on this tonight. So I want to kind of cover some of what I've taught in the back. So if you recall, you lightly set the rag up there and then gently apply pressure. Okay. And let me see if I can show that. I don't know if you can see there's a crease in the rag there. So now by that crease being put in there, it gives you a guide to set it against the edge. And as we talked last time, this is about 3/8 of an inch in from this edge to the center of that diamond. So I'm going to let 3/16 of an inch hang off the edge of the table, so it will create that belt leather to flex and bend for me. So the rag will only go in that distance for me. And there again, from the beginning, it took a lot of the dye starting off, so we're going to put some more dye in there. And just put it right in that groove where you got it put, and then just gently move it back and forth. And there again, these things come back. So people are just now learning. I'm going from my thumb to my fingertip. Do not go past that, because then the leather, the belt itself, will get out of control. It will bend and flex and move, and you'll slip off, and then you've ruined a beautiful piece of work that you've done. And that even goes for, if you're dyeing the edge of a holster, a guitar strap, a purse, when you're fading the edge, same technique. You're still going to put it up the edge and make it flex and bend for you. There, I have quite a bit of dye on that. That's flowing really nice for me. So we'll turn that around. I think it was the video before last, I did some tooling to help someone because they were struggling with the leather stretching and tool going through on lightweight leather. And that's a whole different technique of dyeing. We won't get into that tonight. Maybe we can fit that into next week or the following week. Just depends how our schedule works out with what I have tooled and ready for, customers and my shop here. Because it's not cheap, of course, just to grab a hunk of leather and say, okay, I'm going to dye it. So anyways, you just continue to put this on here, put it in the crease. Wanted to get away from me there. Got a little too much hanging over the edge is what happened there, just so you know. That's what caused that to happen. Okay, so the other thing that we do too is we're going to dye the edge of this too. I mean, most of it's done because the rag is hanging off the edge, but you still want to catch it all. And if you recall what the reason for that being in the past is so when your excess of your antique flows off the edge, this is already filled the pores to the leather, so the antique doesn't stick down in there, and it's more apt to rub off on your clothing. So there again, finish putting that down on that side there. So now we'll grab our British tan, which is, I believe, what we used on that guitar strap. trying to stick with more easier start off where you don't have to move a rag so fast and do, real fast motions. So I want to try to make it easier for you folks as, you're just beginning to learn here. So here now, we want to only dye the surface here. And we're going to go completely across the top of it. So there again, we're loading the rag, giving a little air, except this time now, so it doesn't all gush out on you. You're going to want to tap it, circular motion, get a lot of it off that surface, because if you don't, it would gush right out. That for me. Okay, so then you're going to gently swipe across. And if you notice, it gets a little darker right here at first where you're starting. So it's really smart to move ahead and hit this area. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting it dark, and it's never going to get as dark down here, back here. And then you're going to have an issue. So I'm going to come back and touch this area and just kind of blend that in. Okay, so we're at that point there. So we'll let that dry a little bit, and we'll kind of move back and forth here a little bit just so you can see. So this is set up now, the carnauba and the guitar strap. So then we take the other type of sheep. It's chrome tan, so it's very soft and flexible, and you're just going to gently buff over it, build the luster up. So as you see, the shine there, and we come back here, it's not quite so shiny. Once again, we'll come down here so you can see the difference. So there again, you're going to continue and go all the way down and gently buff it to build the luster, and that's that thin coat of wax of carnauba, which is a protective finish, of course. So when we applied the carnauba with the rag and then the sheepskin on the ends, alcohol-based dye, of course, when it goes in, this has alcohol. And so when it goes down in there, alcohol, of course, dries your skin, it dries the leather. So it pulls oils from your veg tan leather. And that's what that's called, veg tan leather that you're tooling. So what happens is the alcohol-based dye takes oils, and that's what makes the product stiff and hard. So when using carnauba, coming back with your sheepskin, you're putting natural oil back into the leather that you took out of it when you dyed it with the alcohol-based dye. So that's kind of a lesson there why carnauba is used, because carnauba is a natural oil. It's not man-made.
And it's actually in most food.
Huh?
It's in food too.
Yeah.
They even put it in food.
It's even put in food as well. So buff this down here. And a little later, I'll show you a step towards the end, what is done next. And that pattern I just did and showed you in the British tan in Cordovan. Okay, here's one where I did the whole thing black, just so you get to see what it looks like in black. Okay, looks pretty darn nice in black as well. So anyways, I think what we'll do, so we have sealer going at the same time while that's still drying. What we're going to do is dye the main belt here. That is like the showpiece for the night that, everybody, I think there's like 202, 203 people that clicked on how they liked this or loved it. So I'm going to show how this is done next, and then why that is drying. Then we'll go back and antique it, and then come back and antique this. So we're using the same chemicals such as our sealer at the same time as well. Okay, so now I'm using the Fiebing's black oil dye. Move that up out of the way. Can you get the Jordache belt over
The
there?
dyed one.
Yeah.
Mm,
It's hung up over there.
yeah. That's not fun.
See that rag is kind of falling out of place. It's not lined up nice. So I'm going to refold that. So I am in control, not the rag, of course. There we go. Much nicer, much nicer. And there again, we'll load the rag here. We'll start down here. Like I say, we're learning all this. Hope our video, and I hope the sound is much better tonight. Does that sound much better tonight to you? Awesome, awesome. So anyways, we're gonna start here and right on this end, and we're gonna start off with the black. It moved on me here, so I gotta get this. Can get out of hand real easy. And there again, same thing. You're gonna let, 50% of it hang off the edge. So the rag will only go in a certain distance. Let's see if I think we're getting this video down pretty good, and our distance bar tables show the dyeing in that as well. Takes a lot of pressure. You got a whole lot of pressure there. So the rough edge of that leather stays gripped into the rag. Not sure if Amanda got the rest of the information put up on the creaser that I showed everybody last week about smoothing out the edges instead of having the expense of the edge bevelers. And those can range anywhere from $6.95 to $65, depending on where you're able to find them or purchase them. So just another avenue to keep your costs down when you're learning, which is very important when you have a limited budget. Especially in these times when so many people have to stay home and are out of work or stuff like that. Every dollar counts. I guess a little bit of history about me. I'll try to share a little bit at a time, being we have time to talk to you as I'm doing this. My business before this, it was in Flint for 30 years, from 1982 to 2012. Okay, and during that time, I would teach how to stamp, how to tool, and especially how to dye leather. And so what I did to help the business and have the growth of it, I would travel around to hospitals, treatment centers, such as like Insight, where for alcohol and drug abuse, and the hospitals, of course, for physical and occupational therapy, people that have to learn to work with their limbs again. So, it was very educational for myself, and you get to see other situations such as what it actually takes to start your life over. Just amazing the effort put forth to learn to do things all over. So I did that with many places such as hospitals, and I actually even went to prisons as well to teach. Had quite an experience when I went there. It's something that if a kid was listening, you wouldn't want to tell the story. Let's just say that. It was quite the experience. So we're gonna cover this thing because this is loaded pretty heavy. We're gonna use some of that dye up. Okay. Now we'll go back down this edge. And then I had children from all the different scout groups and 4-H and all those from Weeblos to Girl Scout and Brownies and Bear Cubs. I mean, really, it was kind of fun. And then my kids, like the ones right here now, Amanda and Garth, they actually helped me out with that and worked with the children. And so it's real educational for them as well. Quite exciting. You get to see all types of actions and discipline and all those kind of things. But the whole goal is to share your talent, hope it helps someone, and in the end, keep someone, help one person. That's all that matters, And I always used a story with them. And I share this. We might be all adults here, but I'm sure there's young folks that will watch this. As far as young folks watching this, it's pretty. It was pretty educational for me because during high school, I had, had friends in, a grade ahead of me and behind me, and so you get to see, you make friends, all through high school, but some, of course, live their life a little different. But what I got to experience was from where the high school was around the corner, there was a park. And there's a couple boys and their friend. They decided that they wanted to get some extra booze and cigarettes, etc., etc. And they decided that they were going to go to the party store and rob the party store. And things didn't go as smooth as they thought. And the sad part about it is they ended up killing 2 ladies and injuring the third one. And then they went on the run. And of course, they got caught. But I guess the moral or the point of the story of this is you need to be the leader, not the follower. Think with your own head, not your friend's head, because that usually gets you in trouble if you don't think for yourself. So that was always the reason of teaching that in my program that I used at my business, M&M Leather, during that day, because thousands of kids would come through there every year. And so I just use that as an example because so powerful, the message. Other people can make a decision for you if you're with them. And if you follow through, you're just as guilty as the others. So that's the whole point of the story. And of course, when you are a scout, you get to be a leader and all that. So that's kind of the other reason I use that story is you need to be a leader, not a follower, because it can really decide where the rest of your life is. So that always was a good story to share. So if there's young ones tonight that's listening to this on YouTube or Zoom here, of course, um, I hope that helps you. I really do, because so important, so important. And we're gonna fill this in here. Okay, I believe we're pretty even down each side. And there again, get this spot right here where it folds. Okay, so as I continue here, I'll share another part of that story that I would share with those folks, those younger folks, which is it's really educational for any of them. But anyways, on that note, as far as being a leader, not a follower, and think with your own head, not your friend's head, da da da. Okay, so over time, I mean, if you have any situations that, for say, records or criminal records or stuff like that, that has happened to you because of those situations, it can really limit you on what you get to do later as well. It's simply there. It's not going to change. You know, what type of job you can have down the road, all of that. So what I shared that I was able to share, which is really neat how kind of everything works together, as I learned back in 1989 is when I first started doing some guitar straps for people who play guitar, of course. And I had a radio station in Michigan that had been to my store, seen my work, and that's what they kind of planted the seed, and just they couldn't say enough about my work and the potential that could be there. And so I thought, oh wow, that's cool. And so needless to say, I think we're pretty good on this. I don't know. What do you think here, God? I think that could use a little more.
Mm-hmm.
It does look a
Tad,
tad bit on the gray side there. But anyways, my first music artist I got to meet was Travis Tritt. And then that was simply kind of easy because the radio station knew of him and he was going to be in the area. And so it was all set up security wise. I really didn't, it was very easy, in other words, to get to meet with him and see him. But my next artist I did was Randy Travis. And so when I called, as I learned step at a time, they ask you for your driver's license, social security, the last 4 digits, and they basically do run a background check on you. So you're all excited, wow, am I going to get to go or am I not going to get to go? And you're hoping you can go, and da da da, all those things that go through your head. And so, of course, my record's fine. And so I go and I get to be and see and meet Randy Travis and his wife and really get to see what they're all about. But there again, I always use that story and knowledge of going through these different things in life to share with other people, especially with younger folks that are in the, coming out of high school and so on. But the point of the story is try to make your own decisions, not your friends make your decisions. So I hope that that bit of information helps someone, because that's the whole goal, is to help someone here, whether it's learning how to do dyeing or hearing from my stories, because that's what it's all about, is I want to help someone. So I think we'll be all right when we get this down. I know, just really soaked in this time for some reason, which really. All right. So we'll let that dry a little bit. And then we'll go back to this one here where we put the cordovan edge, and then we put British tan down the center here. How's the clock? And of course, I've already went through one glove.
You're at about 30 minutes or so. Like
Okay.
you've spent 30 minutes.
Okay, cool. This one I can tell from the sweat, it's gonna be fun.
And as usual, we have the supply list posted in the group page. If you have trouble finding it, just message one of us and we'll get it to you.
That one ain't gonna work. All right, well, I ain't gonna worry about it. So anyways, that's the carnauba. Maybe my hand dries off a little more. Yeah, so maybe my hand dries off a little more, I can get the glove on, but it's not like I haven't had dye in my hands before. So there again, you want to fold that up in, like a black type shape, so you can turn and flip it as it gets messy with the extra color. And this, of course, is the Angelus. I believe it's the number 600 acrylic finisher we're using. And there again, same as the dye, you're just going to tip it up and give it a little air and put that on there. There's something about that, I don't know what it is, with their acrylic finisher. I don't know, it can resist this rag. It's really odd, versus the dye just goes right down in there and does its job. But there again, you can see the tan and the cordovan, the difference there on the rag. Being that soaked in, I kind of gave it a little extra here. So it really wanted to soak that up. So there's probably quite a bit of pigment there. Oh yeah, you can see that. So there again, we used both sides. Now I'm going to flip it back to here and give yourself some more acrylic finisher. So it's getting a little bit of a sheen to it there, as you'll see. We'll put just a little bit more light coat here on it. That will make it really resist and let that antique, because this is what's going to create a very smooth and slick surface. So when we go to swipe our antique off, it will just glide down the surface and it won't touch your antiquing that's going to be down into your work here, because that's the goal. You want the antique to stay down into your artwork, your stamping, your tooling, however you want to call that. It's actually both, as far as how I look at that. So while that dries, we're going to go back and we'll go with the blue on this now, and we're going to put blue down here. I'm going to try to put a glove on right now. See if that'll help me. Because I prefer not to have black. I got a little bit there. All right, how about that? Went right back on now, new one. So, all right. So we need a blue. Let me grab one here. Thought I had one for blue. I don't. Yeah, I'm really happy with the look on that. Really getting a nice sheen to it. As I'm sure a lot of people know, when you look at my thing on Facebook, this is 50 years plus now I've done it. So of course I'm going to make it look, easy. And, so hopefully, I'm not moving too fast for you folks, but I'll try my best. And there again, this is Fiebing's blue. They have navy blue, they have light blue. I suggest staying with blue because it's like right in between. It's easier to control. If you use light blue, you have to keep swiping it on and building it up. And it's just harder that way to work with. And there again, just the opposite. Using navy, it goes dark so quick, you're out of control. So, and that's the reason I stuck with blue. It's just, you can kind of put it on really light, or you can just bring it up little by little and make it navy if you wanted to. And there again, give it some air. And there again, like that. So we'll try to move a little slower here. I think we're right about there. We're just gonna so as you're seeing there, that's one swipe. Definitely light blue. So we're gonna go down and give it a little more blue. You can see just that one swipe what it did. Brought it up really nice. And there again, when you're using alcohol-based dye, keep in mind that alcohol evaporates. So when you get to the color that you're thinking you really like, which that's looking really, really nice. So what I'm going to do, being it's alcohol-based dye, it's going to evaporate about one shade. So there again, just real lightly, not a lot of pressure. You're going to go down it one more time. And then when it dries, it's going to be just about where you want it. So as you can see there, I mean, I'm very happy with that as well. So we don't make a mess twice because we've used the Angelus number 600 sealer already on this. So we're gonna go right to the same stuff and put it on the blue belt we just did. That way, when we go to do our antiquing, we'll be doing that at the same time as well. And being you're using black, you'll get a lot of pigment off very quickly. So you'll be using a lot of the rag to do the job on that. And, just, I'm not sure if I covered this, but I'll bring this up because it's very, very important. So even if I did before, it's still worth repeating, is Phoebe's die has an awesome die as far as the penetration and how it works. But when it comes to using their antique, okay, the issue with the antique that they have, not that it's not good, is that they have the same amount or a very strong amount of alcohol in the antique as well. So, of course, that creates a big issue for a person experienced or not experienced because it can get swirls in it, it can get spots in it. It's in control. You're not in control. So that's why I use Angelus Antique because of that reason. You know, at all times you want to be in control, not your finish, because as you know, it's very important. And you can see how fast that just picked that excess right out. So we'll head on down and continue to clean this. Just amazing the amount of pigment there, which is going to be a given when you got black, of course. Yep, this is something when you're dying, you have to be very patient. It's the same thing. When you go to learn your tooling stamping, it takes tremendous patience. You're not going to learn it overnight. And long as people are willing to listen and take it to heart, you know, it makes it a little easier each time. You know, so down the road when I show some stamping in that, we'll cover that too. I'm not sure. I think as far as Amanda, my daughter here, they're taking a poll as far as what will be next when we finish our dyeing course. So we're going to try to get my tooling bench prepped for that, so that will be ready to go, because that will be some quite an ordeal to get that set up. Let's just say that. It's not just a small little bench. It'll be quite the process, but once it's set up, I think we can have some beautiful results from it and be able to help a lot of people. See, now it's getting much better. We're not getting as much pigment, and that's what you want. You know, you've got it clean. There's a bunch back here, of course, where we didn't start. So, like I said, there's a lot of pigment with your black. All right, let's check down here, see if we got everything. Maybe a little bit in here, but then we'll swipe down the whole thing once.
Does anybody have any questions that Doug can address while he's doing this real quick?
You turn, does that fan bother? Does that make the waves?
It does, but
All right, we'll turn the fan on just for a short bit, because you can see there's a little bit of sealer down in there. You can see a nice shine coming there. So there again, that's going to make a nice clear, slick surface for the rag to glide across when we go to pick up the excess of the antique on the surface there. So we'll go back and buff this while we're waiting for that. Build the luster on that. Yeah, I think we're going to have some really nice results with this. This is going to look really nice when it's done. So now we'll buff this out so it's nice and smooth and slick. Give it a little more luster, a little more slickness there to it. This sheepskin is kind of getting flat, it's not so fluffy, so I'm going to get another piece. That's not quite as bad. If you want those little hairs to get down in there, if there's any excess down in the tooling, you want that to pull it right up, put it on the surface and make it shine. Always check your sheepskin. Always check your sheepskin. Yeah. Yeah. All right, so there we got quite a luster, quite a shine. Look at that. That is beautiful, beautiful. All right, so I want to point out last week, I believe it was, when we went to dye this, okay? This here, the number 600 acrylic sealer was put in these areas right here. I need and I guess I use a Q-tip. But the number 600 acrylic sealer was put on these little like arrows here. Okay, so being that's a sealer, it's an acrylic sealer, not a lacquer. So when you have dyes, darker colors have more pigment, and the quicker it can penetrate and eat and go through that acrylic finisher and ruin that effect. So I believe, because there's a lot that was said and people, until I got it up on the site so we could actually see it from an outdoor light, natural lighting, it was hard to see. But for example, this color blue here, and this explains why I had to move like I did before. In 7 seconds, that blue dye can penetrate all the way through that acrylic finisher. And that's with 2 coats of acrylic finisher number 600 by Angelus. So that was the reason I had to fly down that belt and go the speed I did, which made it really hard for you folks to see me do that belt. But that was the whole reason that I had to go at that speed, because the darker the color, the quicker you have to get down and back off that to give your effect of little arrows there. And that's what we want. So just wanted to share that with you because that's very important and it's hard to understand. And I didn't really get the time to explain that. And now you got to see it tonight. And of course, you've seen on the leather site how beautiful it is in natural light. Big difference, big difference. So now we're going to go to the Angelus Antique. What's the number on that, Amanda? I can't remember in the.
Let me see if I can find it. Just a minute.
All right. So I can't remember the number. It's their light brown antique though. Surprise. I'm going through. So there again, I know we posted these are at Lowe's is the cheapest place to get these. Very reasonable. And there again, fold it. So it's nice and flat.
That was
And
the
there-
light brown antique you said?
Yes, uh-huh.
Number 700.
Okay, so that's number 700.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll shake up the antique and just gently squirt it down in there. And being we don't have natural colors or any of that, we don't have to go in a big yank and rush doing that like you do with the natural. You know, the only thing that's important is don't let the antique set too long on top, because then it gets tacky and it likes to grab the rag and drag, and then you pull the antique out of your beautiful work. So that's even more reason I'll take a little spot like this and put some on my rag to make it moist and slick like that. And then I'm going to gently hit the edges and I get some extra, rub it in the rag, and now you can just kind of glide across it, and the rag is nice and flat. It doesn't touch the beautiful work that you put in the piece of leather. There again, whether it's a wallet, a belt, a holster, whatever it may be. And you want as much in there as you can, so when it dries, it goes down in there, and it really makes it, and it dries almost black. And that's where a lot of people say, well, that looks black down in there. But that's the reason why. You have depth in your tooling, and so the antique sets in there, but when it dries, it soaks right down in there. When it dries, it looks virtually black, but it's not. But it gives the upper colors like our cordovan, our British tan, it just makes those colors pop. All right, so we'll move on. We got the blue one all ready for us, which I'm kind of anxious to see that. I think that's going to really look nice. So we'll get the antique put on that, just like right down the center here. There's a lot of tooling. So that's kind of, when you have a bottle such as this, basically a mustard or ketchup type bottle, you're going to kind of keeps it right to the center, aim it where you need it to go. And there's a lot of depth to the tooling, so it's going to really grab, as you're going to see right here, how fast it just got to rub it in. And actually there's not enough antique right in here. I can feel it grabbing on my rag or my glove, because you want it down in there. Kind of fun if you don't get it all the way in and you already swiped the surface with the rag and going, oh my gosh, let's go back and try that one again. So just take your little extra time and make sure you got it down in all the tooling there. That's looking really nice. And there again, those are diamonds there that are kind of compact. They pack a lot. They don't get the depth like the diamond does in the center. I'm learning with some newer tools. They're more on the expensive side. But really, I learned a lot, because I thought, okay, cool, they're a diamond. They're going to cut right in there, da-da-da. It's going to be really easy and sweet. I was dreaming. Because what it is, his tools, and I'll just say this, I think it's going to be all right. He's in Wyoming, I believe, Barry King. But what it is his tool has the outer that cuts nice for you, but a lot of the center of his tools pack leather. Okay, so there's quite a bit of resistance when you go to stamp it in. Okay, so that's getting really juicy. So we're gonna fold this to another spot. Don't go back into it dry, because then you're gonna pull the antique right out. You don't want that happening. That's the whole reason you put it in there. So anyways, we'll get back to it. I just eventually I have to share different things, because I want you folks to learn right and wrong and what's good and what's bad. You know, when the tool's $50, $60, I want you to know what's good about it, what's bad about it. And I'm not cutting up and down of, it's simply Doug Monroe's experience. So hopefully everybody understands that all right. But I learned from that purpose that I'm going, wow, that's a little tougher than you think, because you look at the picture, 4 points and a diamond, but there's so much detail to the center that has to be compressed and put down in there, not just the edge of it. So I learned a lot with that, so keep that in mind if you're thinking about getting a few of those tools. Not that they're not worth it, they're made pretty darn good, especially for a crafter. Okay, and this particular piece, being it's a long belt, I feel a little excess of the antique on the edge. So I'm now going to take a drier piece from my antique rag, and I'm going to gently draw it through just to get the excess blue, excess antique off the edge. You don't want that there, of course. One more time, we'll do that. Better move down the belt here. There it goes. Okay, so we'll check the surface one more time because some of it could run up from drawing it through, but for the most part, it looks pretty darn good here. So at that point, that's going to have to dry. So we're getting pretty much through some class here, and I want to definitely show you the next step that we're going to do on that guitar strap. Okay, but before we go into that, so you can kind of look forward down next month here coming up, because I think, was there 4 meetings next month? I think it is.
Yeah, we're going to try to go ahead and get like a schedule going. So that way we can give out a list of what supplies will be needed, hopefully about a week ahead of time. But once we get it up for February, you'll have it for the whole month and what he'll be working on each week.
Awesome, thank you.
So I'm going back to some natural leather. I'm going to take these gloves off, get these gloves off. But I might have shared part of this story. I know a couple ladies laughed and got a chuckle out of this. It tells my age, of course. But back in high school in the late 70s, early 80s, okay, Jordache, Calvin Klein jeans were real popular, the ones that were vacuum sealed on your body. But anyways, even experienced people, you can make mistakes. But here's what this is. This is the actual belt finished here, as you'll see here. And what I did is the edge was dark brown. I'll try to get this up closer so everybody can see it. The edge is dark brown, or you can use cordovan. This was the number 600 base sealer here, or acrylic finisher. I call it a base sealer from habit. This here is tan, not British tan, it's tan. And this, of course, is the blue you just got to see was put down into here. Thank you for the pointer there, Garth. Mm-hmm. And then just to give it, to help this pop out a little more in here. One time I tried doing the black, like this creates like 4 little black seeds, and it ended up being too much. So what I did is I only did Tandy's tool. This is a G548. Anyways, but fits right in there really nice. And then what I did is I come in with black dye, hit it here, and then the little cedar, which is S624, and then here, and down here. Just enough, it would make the other color pop, as you'll see the black seed, and then your tan here, your natural, and then your blue. And it is really sweet. It sold as fast as I could make it. 8th grade, I was on the road in the summer selling my belts. So as you see, I might as well share my mistake here so everybody can get a laugh at the same time. Get in a hurry and you'll do it every single time. So as I was doing this in a hurry, okay, if you notice there's four, this big veinner, everybody knows here. So you maybe write numbers down even. Being 50 years, a good portion of tools I remember, but this is the V955, this big veinner here. It gets you down the distance really quick. And okay, so then this here in the blue is your 407, and then the 624 cedar. As you see here, I'm using it down here, and that's purposely put there to cut your line off to where you drew the center line to keep this nice and straight. And out here, this is a tool that's used by Al Stillman in the day, the F872. Simply, it's a filler, and it kind of helps show the shape of that like double pyramid going through. And then my son and me, we call this the flamer. There again, the F926 craft tool. And so what I did is, being in a hurry, you'll notice, if you can hang on that for me, Garth. Here's what happens when you get in a hurry. So as I was doing this, you can see what happened is I just started bam, 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 and oops, only 3 of the 407 instead of 4. So that one kind of looks a little different. So I was disappointed, and I haven't dyed it yet. So I thought maybe that would be a good class one to show you how all these colors here are done, the blue and the tan and the black and the natural, and then of course the antique. So in there again, I can't remember, this one has like the 4 seeds, but that is a tool from Taiwan made by Baron Tool Company. So if that helps everybody there. So we'll try to work on this and dye this in the next week or so, so you get to see the results of this out of this here. So
I know we have quite a few that hopped on a little bit later here. If anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and unmute and ask them now. I know it is recorded. We're working on hopefully maybe trying to upload to YouTube, because it looks like Facebook cuts the quality of the video. But other than that, if anyone has questions real quick, go ahead and hop on.
okay, I guess we could go on, and we have time for this to show them this.
Yeah, we have
Put
about,
it-
what, 10 minutes left?
Yeah,
Ish?
yeah, 10 to 15.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show this to you. I mean, it's kind of out of the realm of dyeing, but it's going into the next step. You know, we're going to hit here and there, tooling, sewing, etc. So we'll move this out of the way. And there's quite a story to this, and it's a good story. But of course, when you tool a guitar strap, you're using about a 5/6 ounce, just so you know, so you can, you know, because you're going to back it either with suede, and then by the time you put a 4-ounce suede in, now you've created a belt thickness, you know, something that's an 8, 9 ounce, 9, 10 ounce, and you don't want much thicker than that going over their shoulder. So what I have here in the past, just so you know, the whole story behind this and why I do this, don't peel that yet. Back in the day, everybody that does leather work, I'm sure you're familiar with barge cement. And so what it is I used to use barge cement on here, and then I would flip it over and stick it onto the suede to secure and hold it. And barge cement has a lot of harmful fumes to it. And so, of course, over a period of time, of course, 50 years of doing this, I ended up having a surgery from breathing the fumes all this time. Because when you would sweep the floor, you'd throw your leather around, it would throw chaff around, you would breathe that, you're breathing adhesive. And I had a result of having a cyst in my sinus tract. So I no longer use that. So I'll just go ahead and share the name. I mean, even if you contact these people and you ask for a sample, at least it's something you can see it, feel, and know what happens. But this is I think it's a 16th. It's a 16th, I think. Yeah. Rubber adhesive, And let me tell you, it sticks. So what I do, so I don't have to breathe the chemicals, I've laid a 12-inch strip of their adhesive onto a piece of 4 or 5 ounce chocolate split suede. Okay. And so what I'm going to be doing is we're going to stick that down to this, line that up and stick that right down over that, create the thickness up there, as you'll see, where we're going to get a belt thickness. Plus we'll add, let me try to get that up there a little better for you. There we go. And then that way you get the thickness, say, of a belt, but being with padding in there as well with the suede. It's very, very expensive, but unfortunately that's what I have to do because of the effects of breathing that. So keep that in mind if you're using any larger amounts of permanent adhesive such as barge cement. Very wise to use a chemical mask because I was actually pouring gallons at a time. I have a table here I'm working on right now that's 48 square feet. It's 8 by 6 foot, and this whole surface was covered with adhesives because I built guitar straps by the thousand for Sam Ash. So that's the reason there was, so much adhesive going down at one time. But still, even just putting glue on the back of a holster with permanent adhesive, there's a lot of fumes there. Anybody that's done like a holster belt, that's something that I'm sure you've experienced it. It's not the best to have to smell, So that's the reason I went with this. But anyways, the name of the company is called Durco, Durco, Durco. I think they're in Chicago. They're based out of, but they have all different light film ones, rubber back, different thickness, white foam center. It's great stuff, but it costs a nice chunk of money. So it just depends how serious you are doing it, how often you do it, if it's worth it or not. So anyways, my son here, he's going to help peel this up. And you got that? And you just carefully, you pull this off. And so he's going to hold that for me, hopefully.
Well, it ain't coming off my finger.
Ain't going to come off your finger anyways, huh? So make sure I got plenty of room here. So do your best to line it up either with the top or the bottom. That's one less that you have to worry about. I cut it just a tiny bit wide to make it comfortable. Okay, so the other thing you can do, Tandy, I think, does a roller. You probably get them elsewhere too, but they make them wider. This right here, so I just carefully come in from this way. I'm just going to do just the edge and kind of compress that edge down so it forms nice and tight, bonds to that rubber backing, and then we'll flip it around once it unsticks from my son's finger. So there again, we'll go down the other side, and there again, you'll notice what I'm going to do when I'm done with this, so I'm not on that tooling, I'm going to flip it over and go right on the back of it. Okay, so now I'll have to share a little humor here, so can you hand me that? So you men, you don't tell your wife this, but being you have the whole back to cover, it's easy to go in the kitchen and grab something like this here, and hopefully after you use it, you don't get hit over the head with it. But anyways, you'll take this and you hang on that, and you're gonna make the whole back of that bond really nice. And it's a technique you could even do with glue, but the glue you can get on this. And that way it makes those fibers just bond really nice to the back of that. And so let's get, here we go. There we go. And we got this little bit here to do. So, like I say, next week or so, we'll do the sewing to that. If you notice, the leather has been grooved here. like I showed you on the Dobro strap. So as the stitching is done, it will lay flush with the grain and not set up on top, which then can catch and snag and harm what you're making. So there, that's ready to go. So once you trim it, then it's going to be ready for the sewing machine for assembly. So I think that would probably wrap it up for tonight's class. And so any feedback, questions, or ideas, just leave it there for us to look at, and we'll work on doing those kind of things in the future.
Have a good night, everybody.